Welcome to the Ancient Book Club. I am Kylie Buckley, and today we are reading in the book of Hakath, which is Numbers 19. So, welcome. First, we start by looking at the calendar. So, I'm going to screen share and see where we're at today in today's calendar. So, we're February the 15th, which is a Sabbath here in New Zealand. And it's the 16th day of the Hebrew month. It's the 11th month that we are in. I've got speculative there. Actually, I need to change that because this is the month. So the full moon, we've seen it over the last 3 nights. It's now starting to peel away. And next Thursday, we'll see half a moon and then the conjunction, where we have a 7-star alignment. There is so much happening in the world, isn't there? So much. If you guys want a news channel, actually, and you're on Telegram, feel free to join us. Actually, here's Awake. This is the news channel which I run, which is very good with just a whole lot of information of what's going on in the world. So you can contact me and I can put you on there, or you can just find it and join. It is public. Okay, so for today's reading, I want to thank First Fruits of Zion for allowing me to use their website for these Torah portion studies that we are doing. Let's get going. Numbers 19, the laws of purification.
Now the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, "This is the statute of the law that the Lord has commanded. Tell the people of Israel to bring you a red heifer without defect, in which there is no blemish, and on which a yoke has never come. And you shall give it to Eleazar the priest, and it shall be taken outside the camp and slaughtered before him. And Eleazar the priest shall take some of its blood with his finger, and sprinkle some of its blood toward the front of the tent of meeting 7 times. And the heifer shall be burned in his sight. Its skin, its flesh, and its blood with its dung shall be burned. And the priest shall take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet yarn, and throw them into the fire, burning the heifer. Then the priest shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterward he may come into the camp. But the priest shall be unclean until evening. The one who burns the heifer shall wash his clothes in water and bathe his body in water, and shall be unclean until evening. And the man who is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and deposit them outside the camp in a clean place. And they shall be kept for the water for impurity for the congregation of the people of Israel. It is a sin offering. And the one who gathers the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. And this shall be a perpetual statute for the people of Israel and for the stranger who sojourns among them."
Okay, so this is the red heifer. A heifer is a cow, a male, I think it's a bull, which is red in its toning of its hair. If you want to know more about the red heifer, the Aramaic Palestinian Targum goes into it in more detail. Why this particular animal, was put aside for this purpose. Because until now, we had the lamb and the goat for the sin offering. Okay, they represented sin. The goat normally represents Hasatan. It represents Satanism, just the underworld. Whereas the lamb represents the Son of God. It represents purity. It represents Israel. It represents the innocent. So they have their reasons why they use these animals for particular reasons. And of course, everything is fulfilled in Yahushua HaMashiach coming as the lamb the first time. When he returns the second time, he returns as the king. The first time he came, it was the lamb to take away the sins of the world. And of course, becoming the high priest, which he is. He's our high priest in heaven, and he's coming as the King of Kings and our high priest, the Lord of all lords. So, but the heifer has a particular a specialness about it, and there hasn't been any red heifers around until recently, which the Sanhedrin talk about. But We know that Yahusha has done this. Jesus has taken the sins of the world. So there's no need for any of these anymore for sin offerings, okay? And if anything's ever done, it should always be done in remembrance of Yahusha, not because of it has the power in it now to take the sins. It doesn't, because Yahusha has done it. He is Levi and Judah from the two tribes. He is the Melchizedek order. And he was one of the 22 high priests when he was here, and he took our atonement, and now he is risen, and he is in heaven, in the temple in heaven, as it was made with the temple below. It is in heaven, and he is there until he comes back here to rule and reign, as he will do, I believe, very soon. But this is about the heifer. And as I said, the Aramaic Targum talks more into it. I won't go into it. It will be a long session. And not many will be wanting to know all of those details. So we'll keep going.
Whoever touches the dead body of any person shall be unclean 7 days. He shall cleanse himself with the water on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, and so be clean. But if he does not cleanse himself on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, he will not become clean. Whoever touches a dead person, the body of anyone who has died, and does not cleanse himself, defiles the tabernacle of the Lord, and that person shall be cut off from Israel. Because the water for impurity was not thrown on him, he shall be unclean. His uncleanness is still on him. This is the law.
So this when it says the water, it's not written in King James Bible, but it's the water of the purification of the heifer. So the heifer is burnt and its ashes go into an earthen vesselware, which is filled up with water, and then that's the water that they're talking about. It's a water of purification, okay? So if you touched a dead body or you've been unclean, you need to be able to cleanse yourself spiritually, physically, through this water of the heifer. The heifer is to do with purification. Okay, so yeah, that's what that's about. Whereas we know that Yahusha is our purification. All in him. Everything in the Old Testament is fulfilled in him.
Law when someone dies in a tent. Everyone who comes into the tent and everyone who is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days. And every open vessel that has no cover fastened on it is unclean. Whoever in the open field touches someone who was killed with a sword, or who died naturally, or touches a human bone or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. For the unclean they shall take some ashes of the burnt sin offering, and fresh water shall be added in a vessel. Then a clean person shall take hyssop, and dip it in the water, and sprinkle it on the tent, and on all the furnishings, and on the persons who were there, and on whoever touched the bone, or the slain, or the dead, or the grave. And the clean person shall sprinkle it on the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. Thus on the 7th day he shall cleanse him, and he shall wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and at evening he shall be clean. If the man who is unclean does not cleanse himself, that person shall be cut off from the midst of the assembly, since he has defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. Because the water for impurity has not been thrown on him, he is unclean. And it shall be a statute forever for them. The one who sprinkles the water for impurity shall wash his clothes, and the one who touches the water for impurity shall be unclean until evening. And whatever the unclean person touches shall be unclean, and anyone who touches it shall be unclean until evening. And the people of Israel, the whole congregation, came into the wilderness of Zin in the 1st month, and the people stayed in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there. Now there was no water for the congregation, and they assembled themselves together against Moses and against Aaron.
Okay, now I remember speaking into the well of Miriam. She carried with her from Egypt, it was like a beehive, what you imagine in the cartoon, beehive size and shape, like a beehive cone, which was a well of water. And it was to do with the fact that God blessed her because she followed Moshe as a little baby. When he was put into the bassinet, she trusted the Most High and said, Mama, put the baby in a bassinet and put tar around it and put it down the water. It all came from Miriam. She was a prophetess. And so her parents listened and thought, okay, let's do that. So they did. And then when they put the baby in the bassinet and it went down the river for Pharaoh's daughter to see him and take Moses into Pharaoh's palace to grow up. It was accounted to her for righteousness because she had strong faith. She knew the voice of the Most High telling her, and she listened and she did. Now, because of that, when they came out of Egypt, she had this well, and everywhere that they went, she'd put the well up somewhere a little bit higher, and the water would flow from it. And it gave sustenance to all the cattle, gave sustenance to all their vegetables and everything they brought with them, and for themselves to drink. It was pure water that came from this rock. It was an absolute miracle and a mystery. And I actually think it's probably still here in this world somewhere. I'd like to know where it is. However, when she died, the well stopped producing water. This is how it was that they had no water. It wasn't that they were traveling somewhere where there was no water. They had it. And so this is what's happened now. Okay. So, and the other thing too is this water was accounted to her because of her innocence. She had a heart after God. And even when she had the leprosy, when she said to Moses, how is it that you take a dark woman to be your wife? And we're not meant to, and didn't know the background story of that. Moses hadn't shared it with his sister Miriam, no reason for him to. And she accused him without coming to him and talking first and getting the knowledge. That's when she got the leprosy. However, the well still remained with her. And of course, the leprosy healed as well after 14 days. But they're all lessons for us as well. So let's keep reading.
And the people quarreled with Moses and said, would that we had perished when our brothers perished before the Lord. Why have you brought the assembly of the Lord into this wilderness that we should die here, both we and our cattle? And why have you made us come up out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place? It is no place for grain or figs or vines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink. Then Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting, and fell on their faces. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the staff and assemble the congregation, you and Aaron your brother, and tell the rock before their eyes to yield its water. So you shall bring water out of the rock for them, and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. And Moses took the staff from before the Lord as he commanded him.
Now, I want to read that same passage from the Targum. And the Lord Yahusha spoke with Moshe, saying, take the rod of the miracles and gather the congregation, thou and Aaron thy brother, and both of you adjure the rock by the great and manifested name, which is YHVH, and the vowel point says Yaora, Yaora, or Yaora. Okay, that's the name of our Father. While they look on. So he has to call the name of the Father while they look on, and it shall give forth its waters. But if it refuse to bring forth, smite thou it once with the rod that is in thy hand, and thou wilt bring out water from them from the rock, and the congregation and their cattle may drink. And Moshe took the rock, he took the rod of the miracles from before the Lord, as he had commanded him, and Moshe and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock. And Moshe said to them, hear now, rebels, is it possible for us to bring forth water for you from this rock? And Moshe lifted up his hand and with his rock struck the rock 2 times. This is what the Father told him to do? Anyway, At the first time it dropped blood, but at the second time came forth a multitude of waters, and the congregation and the cattle drank. But the Lord spoke to Moshe and Aaron with the oath, because you have not believed in my word to sanctify me in the sight of the children of Israel. Therefore, you shall not bring this congregation into the land that I will give them. These are the waters of contention, where the sons of Israel contended before the Lord on account of the well that had been hidden. And he was sanctified in them, and Moshe and Aaron, when the waters were given to them. Okay, so because he disobeyed, it wasn't that he was angry and hit the rock. A, he called the people rebels. B, he gave them a question, can we do this and strike the rock and it will bring forth water? He did not use the name of Yahweh, the great and magnificent name. He struck the rock twice and he was meant to strike it once. And in fact, if he'd said the name of the Father, he wouldn't need to strike it at all, because it was about the Father having the glory. Where Moses thought, I can do this too. It was one time when Moses did not obey. And he called the people rebels. So we all have moments of weakness, but unfortunately there was consequences. Let's see now what it says here.
Then Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock, and he said to them, Hear now, you rebels, shall we bring water for you out of this rock? And Moses lifted up his hand and struck the rock with his staff twice, and water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank and their livestock. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Because you did not believe in me to uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people of Israel, therefore you shall not bring this assembly into the land that I have given them. These are the waters of Meribah, where the people of Israel quarreled with the Lord, and through them he showed himself holy. Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom. Thus says your brother Israel, You know all the hardship that we have met, how our fathers went down to Egypt, and we lived in Egypt a long time, and the Egyptians dealt harshly with us and our fathers. And when we cried to the Lord, he heard our voice and sent an angel and brought us out of Egypt. And here we are in Kadesh, a city on the edge of your territory. Please let us pass through your land. We will not pass through field or vineyard or drink water from a well. We will go along the king's highway. We will not turn aside to the right hand or to the left until we have passed through your territory. But Edom said to him, You shall not pass through, lest I come out with the sword against you. And the people of Israel said to him, We will go up by the highway, and if we drink of your water, I and my livestock, then I will pay for it. Let me only pass through on foot, nothing more. But he said, You shall not pass through. And Edom came out against them with a large army and with a strong force. Thus Edom refused to give Israel passage through his territory. So Israel turned away from him. And they journeyed from Kadesh, and the people of Israel, the whole congregation, came to Mount Hor. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron at Mount Hor, on the border of the land of Edom, Let Aaron be gathered to his people, for he shall not enter the land that I have given to the people of Israel, because you rebelled against my command at the waters of Meribah. Take Aaron and Eleazar his son, and bring them up to Mount Hor, and strip Aaron of his garments, and put them on Eleazar his son. And Aaron shall be gathered to his people, and shall die there. Moses did as the Lord commanded, and they went up Mount Hor in the sight of all the congregation. And Moses stripped Aaron of his garments, and put them on Eleazar his son. And Aaron died there on the top of the mountain. Then Moses and Eleazar came down from the mountain, and when all the congregation saw that Aaron had perished, all the house of Israel wept for Aaron 30 days. When the Canaanite, the king of Arad, who lived in the Negeb, heard that Israel was coming by the way of Atharim, he fought against Israel and took some of them captive. And Israel vowed a vow to the Lord and said, If you will indeed give this people into my hand, then I will devote their cities to destruction. And the Lord heeded the voice of Israel and gave over the Canaanites and they devoted them and their cities to destruction. So the name of the place was called Hormah. From Mount Hor they set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. And the people became impatient on the way. And the people spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. Then the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people so that many people of Israel died. And the people came to Moses and said, We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. So Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said to Moses, Make a fiery serpent and set it on a pole, and everyone who is bitten, when he sees it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on a pole. And if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and live.
Now, isn't it interesting that all in the Western world, the symbol for healthcare anywhere is the line, which is the pole with the serpent around it. You have a look, Google it, and your local doctors, the hospital, anywhere, and it's something that we have kept through the 12 tribes of Israel. As you lift that up, and it represents that when we look upon it, that we will live. So there's hope. And it's interesting that all in our countries, this is what we have kept from this scripture, from this occasion that happened. That's another reference to the fact that we are the 12 tribes of Israel, now scattered abroad throughout the world, the Western world. Yeah, amazing, eh? Okay.
And the people of Israel set out and camped in Oboth. And they set out from Oboth and camped at Ayahabarim, in the wilderness that is opposite Moab, toward the sunrise. From there they set out and camped in the valley of Zered. From there they set out and camped on the other side of the Arnon, which is in the wilderness that extends from the border of the Amorites, for the Arnon is the border of Moab, between Moab and the Amorites. Therefore it is said in the book of the wars of the Lord, Wahab and Suphah, and the valleys of the Arnon, and the slope of the valleys that extends to the seat of Ar, and leans to the border of Moab. And from there they continued to Beer, that is the well of which the Lord said to Moses, Gather the people together, so that I may give them water. Then Israel sang this song, Spring up, O well, sing to it, the well that the princes made, that the nobles of the people dug, with the scepter and with their staffs. And from the wilderness they went on to Mattanah, and from Mattanah to Nahaliel, and from Nahaliel to Bamoth, and from Bamoth to the valley lying in the region of Moab, by the top of Pisgah that looks down on the desert. Then Israel sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, saying,
There's a lot in all of this. It's moving pretty fast, and I don't want to be stopping it all the time. But when I say spring up a well, I mean, we're looking back now at the well. So the living well, the well concerning the Lord Moses, assemble the people and give them water. Then behold, Israel sang the thanksgiving of the song at the time that the well had been hidden, was restored to them through the merit of Miriam. Spring up, well up, spring up. The well which the fathers of the world, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, dug. The princes who were of old digged it. So, yeah, these are the wells that Abraham, Isaac dug, which they have come across here. And when you read in Genesis about it, you can read more about that. When you're looking at the story of Isaac, comes up. So they just recognized it, and they're singing the same songs they sung when they got the well of Miriam restored to them.
Saying, Let me pass through your land. We will not turn aside into field or vineyard. We will not drink the water of a well. We will go by the king's highway until we have passed through your territory. But Sihon would not allow Israel to pass through his territory. He gathered all his people together and went out against Israel to the wilderness and came to Jahaz and fought against Israel. And Israel defeated him with the edge of the sword and took possession of his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, as far as to the Ammonites, for the border of the Ammonites was strong. And Israel took all these cities, and Israel settled in all the cities of the Amorites, in Heshbon, and in all its villages. For Heshbon was the city of Sihon, the king of the Amorites, who had fought against the former king of Moab, and taken all his land out of his hand, as far as the Arnon. Therefore the ballad singers say, "Come to Heshbon, let it be built. Let the city of Sihon be established. For fire came out from Heshbon, flame from the city of Sihon. It devoured Ar of Moab, and swallowed the heights of the Arnon. Woe to you, O Moab! You are undone, O people of Chemosh. He has made his sons fugitives, and his daughters captives, to an Amorite king, Sihon. So we overthrew them. Heshbon as far as Dibon perished, and we laid waste as far as Nophah. Fire spread as far as Meribah." Thus Israel lived in the land of the Amorites, and Moses sent to spy out Jazer, and they captured its villages and dispossessed the Amorites who were there. Then they turned and went up by the way to Bashan. And Og the king of Bashan came out against them, he and all his people, to battle at Edrei. But the Lord said to Moses, "Do not fear him, for I have given him into your hand, and all his people and his land. And you shall do to him as you did to Sihon king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon." So they defeated him and his sons and all his people, until he had no survivor left, and they possessed his land. Then the people of Israel set out and camped in the plains of Moab, beyond the Jordan at Jericho.
Okay, well, it just says in here about Og, because we know Og was the giant that hung on to the boat of Noah, and it just says here, and when Moshe saw Og, he said, "Is not this Og the wicked who taunted Abram and Sarah and said, they are like fair trees by a fountain of water, but give no fruit? Therefore the Holy One, blessed be he, kept him alive for many years. Yet the time that he should see his children's children's children, and fell by their hands. Therefore the Lord said to Moshe, fear him not, for I have delivered him into your hand, and all his people, and all his land, and thou shalt do to him as thou had done to Shechem, the king of the Amorites, who dwelt in Heshbon." Yeah. So there's more information in this Targum. It's a wonderful book. I encourage you all to acquire it. Zen Garcia sells it on the Sacred Word Publishing website under books. So feel free to get yourself a copy. Okay, let's just read the Judges now.
Now Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty warrior, but he was the son of a prostitute. Gilead was the father of Jephthah. And Gilead's wife also bore him sons. And when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, "You shall not have an inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman." Then Jephthah fled from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob, and worthless fellows collected around Jephthah and went out with him. After a time the Ammonites made war against Israel. And when the Ammonites made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to bring Jephthah from the land of Tob. And they said to Jephthah, "Come and be our leader, that we may fight against the Ammonites." But Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "Did you not hate me and drive me out of my father's house? Why have you come to me now when you are in distress?" And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "That is why we have turned to you now, that you may go with us and fight against the Ammonites and be our head over all the inhabitants of Gilead." Jephthah said to the elders of Gilead, "If you bring me home again to fight against the Ammonites, and the Lord gives them over to me, I will be your head." And the elders of Gilead said to Jephthah, "The Lord will be witness between us if we do not do as you say." So Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and leader over them. And Jephthah spoke all his words before the Lord at Mizpah. Then Jephthah sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said, "What do you have against me, that you have come to me to fight against my land?" And the king of the Ammonites answered the messengers of Jephthah, "Because Israel, on coming up from Egypt, took away my land, from the Arnon to the Jabbok and to the Jordan. Now therefore restore it peaceably." Jephthah again sent messengers to the king of the Ammonites and said to him, "Thus says Jephthah, Israel did not take away the land of Moab or the land of the Ammonites, but when they came up from Egypt, Israel went through the wilderness to the Red Sea and came to Kadesh." Israel then sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, "Please let us pass through your land." But the king of Edom would not listen. And they sent also to the king of Moab, but he would not consent. So Israel remained at Kadesh. Then they journeyed through the wilderness and went around the land of Edom and the land of Moab, and arrived on the east side of the land of Moab, and camped on the other side of the Arnon. But they did not enter the territory of Moab, for the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. Israel then sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, king of Heshbon. And Israel said to him, "Please let us pass through your land to our country." But Sihon did not trust Israel to pass through his territory. So Sihon gathered all his people together and encamped at Jahaz and fought with Israel. And the Lord, the God of Israel, gave Sihon and all his people into the hand of Israel, and they defeated them. So Israel took possession of all the land of the Amorites who inhabited that country. And they took possession of all the territory of the Amorites from the Arnon to the Jabbok, and from the wilderness to the Jordan. So then the Lord, the God of Israel, dispossessed the Amorites from before his people Israel. And are you to take possession of them? Will you not possess what Chemosh your God gives you to possess? And all that the Lord our God has dispossessed before us, we will possess. Now are you any better than Balak the son of Zippor, king of Moab? Did he ever contend against Israel, or did he ever go to war with them? While Israel lived in Heshbon and its villages, and in Aroer and its villages, and in all the cities that are on the banks of the Arnon 300 years, why did you not deliver them within that time? I therefore have not sinned against you, and you do me wrong by making war on me. The Lord, the judge, decide this day between the people of Israel and the people of Ammon." But the king of the Ammonites did not listen to the words of Jephthah that he sent to him. Then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh, and passed on to Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he passed on to the Ammonites. And Jephthah made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes out from the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the Ammonites shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering." So Jephthah crossed over to the Ammonites to fight against them, and the Lord gave them into his hand. And he struck them from Aroer to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 cities, and as far as Abel-keramim, with a great blow. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel.
Wow, that's tremendous. Just think on that, 20 cities. And remember the heads of all the 12 tribes, when they went in, they didn't want to fight with them at all. And that was, everybody. This guy with Israel fought. And why? Because he had faith. He'd given it to the Father to lead him, to guide, and to bring everything that comes is in his hands. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Everything else will be added unto you. John 2.
On the third day there was a wedding at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited to the wedding with his disciples. When the wine ran out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what does this have to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone water jars there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the master of the feast." So they took it. When the master of the feast tasted the water now become wine, and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, Everyone serves the good wine first, and when people have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now. This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. After this, he went down to Capernaum with his mother and his brothers and his disciples, and they stayed there for a few days.
Now, this is actually very funny. We've just learned about purification. Remember the red heifer? And it was the ashes that were in there, and they were in the earthen vessel filled with water that you use to wash your hands, to clean. And he took that water and he made wine out of it, and they drank it. And when you read it in the Aramaic New Testament, it's almost like a joke on the priests, on the people there. I think it says that they were priests. When at the wedding, Jesus' wedding, the man of the wedding, Jesus said, when the master of the feast tasted the water. Yeah. I remember doing a study on this years ago now, and it was hilarious that he used that water. It's like the most dirtiest, scungiest water. You don't drink it. It's just there to wash. You know, it's like going to the Jordan River where they got water baptized. It's not crystal blue water. It's the most dirtiest, grubbiest water. And that's where you get baptized in. So it is what it is. But I know too, like, okay, here's another spin on it. Diatomaceous clay. If you drink that, and that's dirt, that's clay, it purifies you. And it's like it's a magnet that draws out all the impurities, all the toxins in your body. Diatomaceous clay can clean you of worms and parasites, poisoning, all sorts of things. And I've just put it in my water with my chickens and my dog water. So maybe there's something like this, that it purified because it was the ashes in the water. And it must, because, you know, like I brush my teeth sometimes with charcoal, black, you know, but it makes your teeth so white because it draws out the impurities and the toxins, although nobody would think to drink water with ashes in it or the Jordan River. But this is what happens. You see, and you get water baptized in the Jordan River, it's drawing out everything that's filth and toxins as we come up fresh in him. There's a lot in that. So I hope you enjoyed these readings today. And we're getting there. We're getting through the book of Numbers. The next book is Deuteronomy, and then that's the end of the Torah portion series, guys. So Shabbat Shalom. Have a really good week, and we'll just give you thanks and glory, Father, for this day, for your Sabbath, for everything that you have given to us, all our blessings. We honor you, Yahusha, Jesus, our high priest, our Messiah, the coming King of all kings. And thank you for what you're doing in the world, for cleaning up the filth that has been happening, Father, over all our lands and in our lands. And we just give you praise and glory because your timing is perfect in all things. Praise be Yahweh and Yahusha. See you guys.